So we were talking about how your investment strategy when you're younger, you're giving up a lot. You are like eating the cheap food, buying the cheap clothes, and like, but it's all the sacrifice that you need to do to get to a certain place. But when does that shift happen that you start looking at your investments and saying, okay, it could either just sit in this account for the rest of my life, or I can utilize it to have a good life?
Yeah, and I think, kind of continuing what I was saying is that like they're both right, and the problem is that you have to then think for yourself of like what's the best overall strategy, because as you're building, the sacrifice is what's necessary to get there. Mm-hmm. But then if you wait till you've 100,000% built, and then you go, okay, now I'll live in the house. Like, well, it's kind of too late at this point, right? So like the old dude driving the Porsche, it's like you're not really getting to enjoy it, right? Because like you're just not able to use it in the same kind of way that you would have, or that how you imagined it, right? So like the real question is, where does that shift begin and how far does it go, right? Because you can always rest on the laurels of like, I'm doing the right thing, I'm saving, I'm investing, I'm building, but then okay, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, and you go, well, okay, well, at what point do you actually take some and enjoy it? Because the level that you can build to will start to have a mitigating effect on your life. Where like, okay, if you've got $10 million and no debt, no bills, and no nothing, well then like what's the difference of having 8 million?
Yeah.
And the same thing, if you really get what I'm saying, like what's the difference of having the same thing? Because 8 million with no debt, no bills, you're still pretty safe.
Yeah.
10 million, still pretty safe. Then why not spend 2?
Yeah.
That's the thinking, right? It's like, but when you've built a 10, you go, I can't spend 2.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Like, how do you spend 2 when you're so used to saving to get to 10?
Yeah.
And where does that shift happen?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I think when you live in a certain scenario for so long, you assume everybody's at the same place as you are and that everybody's in the same situation as you are. Like if I think about, I'm not like by any means close to 10 million, but if I think about like the bills that I have or like the investments that I have or the savings that I have, like it's definitely probably more than the average person, but I always just assume I'm still working and like I'm still building and like I haven't gotten to that point yet. And I'm still, I don't feel I'm fully there, but I do know, and I have to remind myself that I am further than most.
Right. And again, I can understand what you're saying, and I totally get the same logic, because it's the real problem is that like we're not seeing everything on the exact same like plane and like the same sphere that we used to, because we're still living our lives. We're still working with our investments and our bills and our things.
Yeah.
So we go, well, when like what is the marker of feeling safe? What is the marker of feeling secure? What is the marker of, okay, now you can buy this thing? Now, like, I don't know if there is a definitive marker. It's just like saying anything else. There's nothing definitive of like, when do you know you're ready to have a kid?
Yeah.
When do you know, like, well, you don't really fully ever know. Like, you've built some of the things that you go, well, this is the ecosystem in which I'd like to have a kid. This is the ecosystem in which I'd like to buy a Porsche. There's the ecosystem when like you don't really know when there's not a definitive moment that goes, okay, stop, like you're ready now.
Yeah.
And you don't think that either, because
it's
you've been in
probably
that
so
mindset.
Personal too, right? Doesn't it?
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like it's because but you have to decide that. It won't come naturally. It won't just happen. Like, although it's personal, it's not going to just come. There's not going to be a knock at the door and someone goes, yeah, you're ready. Like, or you're not going to have a thought like, I'm really ready now.
Well, how did you get to that point? Because like you were probably one of the more extreme people when we were younger about like, no, cut back on everything, save on everything. Like I remember you even saying $20, that could have been a fucking recess lighting. Like,
right.
But like how for you did that realization and that shift come where you were like, okay, no, now it's more about life quality as opposed to saving?
Yeah, I think I came to more of that realization when I understood that the value of the next dollar wasn't worth what I was giving up to have it. So even if like it was something frivolous like buying a new pair of shoes that like I didn't really care too much about, even just the act of doing it or having it or wearing it was still more than like, oh, but having another $300 in my account would have had zero effect.
Yeah.
So even though that effect isn't great, it's not life-changing.
Yeah.
It's still a bigger effect than the money seeing in the account. And you go, oh, okay, great. Like that's there. So and that's
was there like a dollar number that you got to that you were like, oh, I'm chill? Like...
No. Well, again, I will say this. Remember, I had the goal of having no bills.
Yeah.
I was like, I want no bills, no debt, zero. And at first I thought it's kind of impossible. But when I actually did it, I was like, okay, it was zero.
Yeah.
It was zero. When I got there, I was like, all right, well, there's no worry now, right? I mean, because that was the thing. It wasn't that I had so much money.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you have a lot of money. You have more coming in.
Yeah.
And there's nothing going out. Yeah. Zero. That was for sure. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of people seeing, understanding from both sides of the coin. There's heads and tails. Like, a lot of people are very focused on just the money side. Like, just make more, invest more. Well, also spend, because spending less and having less debt gives you a certain freedom to then go out and make more.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that big moment was really when I really got to zero, when it was actually zero. And I was like, yeah, you realize like nothing's come out except for the things that I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's a sense of safety and security that you can't really get from just making more money. So like that was more impactful than making more, to be honest. Like than seeing a number or having a certain
like
salary.
Knowing you could live without paying anything.
Yeah, knowing that like there's nothing coming out. Like when there's nothing coming out and you go, it doesn't matter how much is coming in because you know that you're going to spend. But
do you want to talk about a little bit how you got to that point? Like how you got your bills to zero?
I mean, it's relevant in the sense that like, managing a building that I can live at for free, getting a lot of those bills paid, working a job where like they'll cover like mileage and, cell phone and things like that. So like also again, then paying down debt. So like the formula to me was I wanted to basically be able to, live for free, which also meant, so it's like rent and your utilities are the main expenses. And then if you're managing a building, then obviously like the cable companies will give you free cable. And then, if you're...
Well, for you... Well, you were your grandfather did.
Yeah, that's an old program, but still, it's the idea that like that's free. Then if the owner of the building's paying for like your utilities and your internet and stuff for the building, okay, that's free. Then if you're working a job and your company's paying for your mileage and your cell phone, well, that's free. And then, everything's basically free at that point. And if you have no debt, well,
so
then
the only
no
expense you really had was eating.
Which is whatever I wanted to buy.
Yeah.
So eating, drinking, going out, shopping, like it was miscellaneous stuff. Yeah. So like the difference with like even eating is that like I can control that. So if I wanted to go back to like 99-cent tuna cans and
right, you
crackers,
totally could,
I could do that, right? Yeah. But like I don't have to, but meaning I know I'm not committed to anything. I don't owe anybody anything.
Yeah.
So that sense of freedom is a lot more gratifying and feels a lot safer than more money. Because the more money you have, you go, okay, I have more money, but money's coming out. And you have to be mindful of that. And it's the mental real estate that you give to that stuff.
Yeah.
That when the first comes up and you go, okay, this is coming out, this is coming out, this is coming out. And you have to actually think about it. Even if you have more than enough to cover it, it's still kind of a thought.
Yeah.
When nothing's coming out, you go, well, like, I guess, it's more freeing.
Yeah.
But, the real point is that the idea of like that transition happens and then you go, oh yeah, that's right. Like I'm now getting to an age where I always thought that I would be. When do I really start to enjoy some of this stuff? When do I really start to really like not just see the fruits of the labor, but actually taste the fruit, right? See what it tastes like. And if I like it, take the seed out of it and plant another one. And that's fine. And I can keep doing that, right? But I have to at least taste the fruit to know which one I like.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thinking, was that you got to go try something. And obviously too, I was in a place where, there's not a lot of friends or family or people around. So you're like, well,
where am I finding my joy?
Like, what's the whole point of having all this stuff if you're not able to share it, if you're not able to enjoy it with other people, if
you're not even enjoying it yourself,
if you're not enjoying yourself and it's just a number in your account or a thing in your head. So, but I do think the lesson is important that like it has to start. You can't have it all. Like it can't start off with you're going to be able to know that exact equation.
Yeah.
You do have to give up a portion of your life. You do have to sacrifice to get to that point. But then once you've gotten somewhere there or some, remnants of that, like you have to then understand the value of it goes beyond just the actual amount that's being spent or saved. And you have to then think of it in terms of your life. And I give the example of Warren Buffett all the time of like, at the time, I think the world's like second richest guy. And he would either, get cheese on his like sausage McMuffin if the market was up, and not get cheese if the market was down. And you're talking about
eat McDonald's like every morning, right?
Right. Yeah. But basically talking about like whatever it was, a 10 or 25 cent cost for a guy who's worth, $50 billion at the time. You go like, dude, you could buy cheese every day until you die for everyone in the country and
in the world
and be totally fine, right? But yet in his mind, like the
routine,
not just the routine, but like
the mindset,
what it took to get to that mindset to make $50 billion. Yeah. You don't just easily break that. Yeah. So if my mind is, well, the market's up, so, incrementally I've made money today, I can spend 10 cents. The market's down.
And also think the generation he came from, 10 cents when he was like probably first initially going into like the savings, like it was a decent amount of money.
Yeah, but let's not be ridiculous. He's worth $50 billion.
No, I know. I know.
I know what you're saying.
But for us, like even like as we get older, like $100 will always seem like a good amount of money to me. Yeah,
no, but incrementally, if you're worth $50 billion to 10 cents, I mean,
I don't know.
Like I don't know. I don't know if a penny seems like a lot to you anymore. Like
no.
I mean, like
but like what if he feels like a lot of his funds are in stocks?
And they are, but that's not the point. The point is he still understands math. Like he still gets that like 10 cents compared to 50 billion. It's like you couldn't if you spent 10 cents.
How many pennies are in 50 billion?
I have no clue. And I wouldn't even try to. Sorry, but the point being, you can spend 10 cents every day, every hour, for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't even approach $1 million.
Well, he won't die.
Right, but the point being, it's not about the money. It's about the idea that like the mindset like that you build, the repetition that you build, the way that you look at value is the key. Yeah. And the value that you see is what makes you go, I shouldn't do that. Not that I can't, because that was the point even for me. It's like, not that I can't, I shouldn't. That instinct of I shouldn't is stronger than the instinct of I could. Because I could is like, yeah, I could. And you've always been, but like, I shouldn't because ... And the ... was, it was a smarter thing. It was a better thing. It was the more long-term thing. But at some point, like 50 billion to 10 cents, you have to go, yeah, that really doesn't matter. And like my enjoyment is more than the 10 cents. Yeah. My life is worth more than the 10 cents. Yeah. Because at a certain point, there's very little left of the best parts of your life to live. So.
And then what are you working for, right?
Well, and that's the point. I still say, okay, now I'm 40, right? And I go, okay, even if I live to 80, right? My best years are going to be like 40 to 60, 65. So say I have 25 decent years left. Yeah. Well, out of spending 25 of those years kind of like doing some form of like saving, investing, educating myself, whatever those things are, wouldn't you want some portion of your life to be pretty decent and be pretty like filled with like the things that you actually wanted? And I think as adults, we get so far away from those things because we don't have them. And we become complacent and we go, well, I'm just happy to take this. I'm just happy to get this. When like, no, what do you really want? And if you have the option to get what you really want, you should then know what are you willing to give to get what you want. But you better know the equation of it, because if what I'm giving up is worth more than what I'm getting, I shouldn't do it. If what I'm getting is worth more than I'm giving up, I should definitely do it. Yeah. And to me, I had to think in that way, like as a truly like binary thought. The thought was, if I'm going to get more from this than I'm going to give, then it's worth it. Then you should do it. Yeah. And that's it. Hey everybody, I'm Adam Khalil. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I definitely want you to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more content like this. But if this content had any value to you, click the like button as well.